for people that don't know what a syndication is, basically you have limited partners and general partners. Limited partners, like Kenny was saying, is they're the ones for the most part put the money in and invest in the syndication. And the general partners are basically the ones that operate it. You're basically hands off and you're allowed to look in depending on how they structure it. But most people are okay if they're, and this is a clue or a hint here, is that you should always be involved with people that are transparent to where they allow you to, take a look at everything, visit the site if needed, and, ask questions about what's going on in the business plan. Basically, the general partners, they execute the business plan. And getting back to, you doing I had visions, the same thing, and buy one house a year and that kind of stuff. And, had the first one and I was like looking at buying the second one, and already in my head, I'm sipping my. Welcome to the Yacht Captain Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Kidd, where every week we dive deep into conversations with real estate pros, business owners, and maritime professionals about their mindset and journey to success. Please help support us on our journey and our channel by liking, subscribing, and commenting below so we can help you in your journey to success. How you doing, everybody? Scott Kidd, the Yacht Captain Investor Podcast. I have my friend here, Kenny. He has his own podcast, the Father Figure Podcast, and he's also a real estate investor, focusing heavily on Kansas City right now. How you doing today, Kenny?
Scott, I am absolutely wonderful. Thanks so much for setting us up today. I'm excited to share some of the things I've got going on and just hang out with you for a little bit.
Yeah, this is cool. Always like our conversation, especially the father stuff. Both of us having that commonality of being dads. But for the 2 or 3 people that don't know who Kenny Johnson is, go ahead and enlighten them with who Kenny Johnson is.
Yeah, for those 2 or 3 out there who forgot and just have been living under a rock. I am a real estate investor that's been in the real estate space for 6 years or so. Father of 3. We had our baby girl about 2 months ago. So new dad, some dark circles if you're looking at me on the screen here. Been married for about 12 years, and really just am I would say, service-minded individual. Love helping others through relationships, communication, building rapport. In a former life, I worked 10 years for a landscaping company as a customer service sort of salesman, and sort of saw the light of not trading my hours for dollars and trying to find some ownership and passive income. So those were some big buzzwords when I hit 30. So here I am, full-time real estate guy today.
Perfect. Well, how did you make that jump from customer service? Because customer service is very important as a real estate investor, especially if you're a landlord or you haven't, whether it's multifamily or, triple net commercial space, you have to have that customer service background. How did you make that jump?
I loved working with my client. We would sell these 100,000 to even like 300,000 landscape renovation inside and outside of the house. And I think what happened was I was commuting about 3 hours a day, sometimes working on Saturdays. And as our family was growing, I was trying to find a way to sort of still work, provide. That was a big deal for me, is like be the breadwinner, provide, but still be present with the family. So that seems to be, sometimes impossible for some people in their minds of how do you do that. I did go to a real estate seminar that helped shine some light on what I could do. And it was a Rich Dad, Poor Dad class. Oh, nice. So for those that have read that book, lots of concepts in there. And the funny thing was I'd already read that book before the conference, but did not sort of connect dots until I went to this group. So was able to figure out a way to leave my job about a year later after going to that. It took a long time, and there was definitely some inner struggles, inner battles of taking that leap. But got my first rental, did like 2 flips soon after that, and I would encourage anyone maybe in a boat of switching things or being very unhappy in their current position is figure out your why
Hmm.
and just put that in front of you as often and as clearly as possible to kind of give you rather the strength or endurance to feel uncomfortable trying something new. So yeah, it was sort of a slow transition out. I mean, like I said, like a year, maybe a little bit longer than a year. But when my daughter was born about 4 years ago, I decided to leave my company and go full time into it. And I'm still standing. I mean, I'm not necessarily richest man on the block here, but I value being with at home with the family, being present. So in that way, I feel like the richest man alive.
Well, there's financial riches, and then there's richness of time and who we spend our time with, and that thing that pays more dividends than any amount of money. Because I know the time with our two daughters going to college now, I know the time that we spent and the things that potentially we thought it saw as maybe a sacrifice as financial, they were the why, and the actual investment in our daughters actually has paid and will be paying in dividends that from money that you can't count, because that I wouldn't for any amount of money, I wouldn't have changed any of those experiences that I had with my family and stuff. And that's why we're doing what we do, and that's why our time is so our most valuable asset, because we don't get it back. Especially,
Yep.
a friend of mine who's an older gentleman, he's since passed, said to me that the only people that are going to remember that you worked late are your kids.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kudos to you for taking the
Cool.
step and taking the leap. The rest of it will come. I think we had a little technical difficulty. But
Yep. Sorry.
no, it's all right. It's not a big deal. But yeah, kudos to you for taking the leap. And it's important for other people to realize that they can do that leap too, and it's not necessarily to get all the
Better or worse? Am I still here?
That's better now.
Okay.
It's a
I'm,
little video's a little sketchy, but
is it?
it'll come back in once. Uh,
Okay. I switched to my phone, so we'll have to just edit that. Sorry about that.
nah, it's all right. No big deal. But we'll just jump back into it. Well, kudos for you for taking that step and taking that leap, because a lot of people don't do it, and they put a lot of things in front of them that they really don't need to. And it just goes to show that, for you to be successful, that your why has to be able to overwhelm everything else. And
Exactly.
it definitely has. That's why you took that step and you invest in yourself, you investing in your family first, and scheduling your family first rather than scheduling all those nights at work and everything else. Because like I was saying before, a friend of mine said the only people that are going to realize that you worked late are your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, they see you at your best and your worst. And
Mhm.
I was on a podcast with somebody, and they're like, they're the great humblers as well. You
Oh yeah.
think you're high and mighty in
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
way you think you
yeah,
are,
yeah.
and you will be brought low with
Oh
just
yeah. There,
the
there
things
will
they do or say.
there will come a time where you are the smartest guy. You are, oh, Dad, you know everything. And then in an instant, it's like,
You know nothing.
you really not, wow. You just don't get
Right.
it, do you?
Right. Oh man.
Not with it. That's my dad. Yeah.
My oldest is 9, so I've seen a little bit of that. And even my
It,
4-year-old,
it
who's a girl,
depends,
I've seen a look from her being like,
Yeah.
"Dad,
Mm.
you're weird,"
Are
whatever.
you just making stuff up as you go along? Well, yeah. how'd you figure that out? It's usually takes a little bit longer.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's no manual or anything. You just kind of, we kind of just make it up as we go along and kind of figure it out. I mean, our instincts kick in. I mean, I know that certainly happened with me and my wife and everything, and and it just it's one of those things. But getting back to it, you're mostly investing in Kansas City, correct? Is that
Yes.
what all of your portfolio is nowadays?
No, and it might help the audience a little bit. This is a messy career for me. I think one of my big problems as a newly married husband and trying to be a provider was I had this big question mark of what should I be doing with my strengths, my gifts. What does a job look like? What does a career look like? And
Hmm.
I really took the first thing that kind of came to me. My friend was starting a landscaping business, and that was, I would say I was directionless with being picky on what I
Yeah,
wanted. And I just sort of went with the flow. And I still kind of have tendencies to go with the flow in that. But then there comes a point where, we've talked about the time. And the
yeah,
time aspect was getting shorter and shorter with my family. So I started doing things that were more intentional. Kansas City has been a market that I found some partners similar to yourself, just doing
yeah.
big projects.
Hmm.
And the story I like to tell is in 2023, I bought 10 houses locally in South Carolina where I live, thinking this was the right, trajectory of
Yeah,
growth and development. So, I had this goal of having 15 rentals. I'm going to make this much cash flow on each one. I'm going to be financially free from all this passive income and sit back and collect checks and, live, live my life the way I want to do it.
oh yeah,
So
yeah,
after, rental number three and these flips that were just not going great or just crazy chaos, not sustainable, whatever. I realized I don't know if this is the best. I don't know if another 10 rentals will solve all these
yeah,
problems that keep popping up. So I transitioned into the fun term syndication,
yeah,
and I sort of preach this secret thing that I didn't really understand. I'd heard of the term syndication. I kind of felt like I knew what it meant, but one of the best things I think our audience can do is find a capital raiser or a syndicated team who's doing projects at a pretty big scale where you're not
hmm,
just one of five or one of three investors. You're with a bunch of other people who are doing this, and find out what the minimum is. I mean, some of these deals it's 100K, some are
hmm,
50, some there are smaller,
hmm.
but get some experience as a limited partner in
Yes,
sort of being the audience to this team that's doing this apartment flip or this development or medical office, whatever it is.
yeah,
And I mean, obviously, you don't want to just throw away 50K, but
yeah,
understanding how that 50K works for you passively is a game changer versus I'm going to go buy a rental,
yeah,
15 minutes away, figure out how to fix it, manage it, fill it, turn
yeah,
it over, and then sell it. it's
yeah.
it's a whole different bucket of energy and time.
Yeah, so for people that don't know what a syndication is, basically you have limited partners and general partners. Limited partners, like Annie was saying, is they're the ones for the most part put the money in, invest in the syndication, and the general partners are basically the ones that operate it. You're basically hands off and you're allowed to look in depending on how they structure it. But most people are okay if they're, and this is a clue or a hint here is that you should always be involved with people that are transparent to where they allow you to, take a look at everything, visit the site if needed and, ask questions about what's going on in the business plan. Basically, the general partners, they execute the business plan. And getting back to, you doing I had visions, the same thing and buy one house a year and that kind of stuff. And, had the first one and I was like looking at buying the second one, and already in my head, I'm sipping Mai Tais on the beach, and I got these 10, I'm under the palm tree, this, and then you start looking at everything going into and stuff starts going wrong with the one. And then you're like, yeah, and right as I was moving the renter, and I think we had a plumbing leak, cost me like $1,200 or something like that. I had to smash out the wall and,
Yep.
piping and
Yep.
all kinds of stuff. I'm dragging pipe out of there and, trying to do part of it myself. And,
Oh, of course.
and it's got to learn the hard way and everything. But the syndication is definitely for all the professionals and stuff out there that think you want to be a landlord. I'd recommend maybe going buying that first house and seeing how much goes into it and realizing that maybe it's best to get a professional team like you've found in Kansas City, where you're part of a big team. Because the big difference between the residential and the commercial space is that, hey, the residential, you can buy a few houses and self-manage them yourself or get a property manager. But to get into commercial real estate, you have to have a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that only, I mean, and that's, I feel like the barrier to entry is like, I
Yeah.
don't have a team.
Yeah.
So you rather, I would say, quit your job, whatever you're doing, and be the guy to build a team,
Yeah.
or do what I would say is recommended, invest passively with a tried and true
Team.
operator team who can say, hey, these are the number of deals I've done. These are
Yeah.
the full cycle exits we've had. And some of these deals are 5, 7 years.
Yeah.
And then see who they're playing with. Architects, the GC. There's, well, I think what I've been enlightened on the most over the last maybe year working with the team that I'm with in Kansas City is the people that are attracted to their deals are in a completely different caliber than the the more cost efficient guy.
Hmm.
We're not going for cost efficient. I mean, we do want to watch the budget, of course, but
Hmm.
when you're building something that's $70 million, you want to
Yeah.
make sure everything is done efficiently and correctly.
And on time.
And it's so much. Like I
Yeah.
think about just I still do fix and flips locally. They do help me as a capital raiser with cash flow.
Hmm.
And just getting the plumber and the drywall guy and everything, it's so much work. Obviously, there's economies of scale when you're building 200 units.
Hmm.
The same guy's doing the same thing 200 times. But holy cow, it can feel like a job when you're in the middle of it. So being having
Yeah.
that team and with economies of scale and working with professionals
Yeah.
feels a lot safer.
Yeah, it does because it spreads the risk. What do you look for in a team? Like,
Yeah.
other than the track record, you mentioned, experience and track record and everything else.
Yeah,
Um,
great question. So you're when you are not the GP. So when you're giving someone control, the person that you're talking with, who's leading is very important. I think everyone who does some type of syndication initially thinks is this a Ponzi scheme? Is there something
yeah,
wrong that I don't know that we're all going to just lose our money,
yeah, yeah,
completely lose it? And then, is there a way they can like sue us? And what's going
yeah.
on here? We've seen all these documentaries and things on TV. So I think just speaking. So I have to represent my investors, people who say, "Hey, Kenny, I want to get on this deal. I know you, I like you, I trust you, but who are these people in
Hmm.
Kansas City?" So that is probably, I mean, that's my job right there is vetting these teams. So the first thing that really catches my interest is similar to me, like how am I treated and what is this person's values?
Hmm.
So really big into client experience. I try to deliver an over the top experience with all my customers or with all my investors, but how am I treated with these operators? And
Hmm.
I've worked with a few that make me feel very small. They're too
Hmm.
busy.
Yeah.
They've got all these things going on and they're spread thin. So they're
Hmm.
probably doing very important things, but I mean, the name of real estate, I feel like is a lot of timing on what is this team's bandwidth right now? What have they committed to? How are they performing? Because just like with anything in life, you start getting some successes or getting some things, but you're not equipped to handle it or
Mhm.
communicate. You could quickly just go the other direction. So, sort of a
Yeah.
long-winded answer there on communication,
Yeah.
how they sort of treat me as
Yeah.
a capital raiser, and then I'm a Christian, and that's my faith, and that's been something that isn't necessarily like first question on if I'm going to work with you or not. But what's I have found sort of an odd corollary, sort of lining up is some of these teams that have Christian faith in their just culture has been really easy to kind of cut through some of the maybe integrity questions or
Yeah.
you see the people who are raising families. I think someone told me the other day, if you have like a family and you're a Christian and there's kids, there's a lot said about you without you even really
Mhm.
saying anything.
True. Yeah.
Versus maybe the other way, which is like you're kind of a partier or a bachelor
Single guy,
or a single guy, don't really have a faith, or if it is,
Yeah.
it's really like murky or not
Yeah.
defined. I'm not saying that person is, you know, not
Yeah.
a very smart person, but there's maybe a lot of question marks that if I could choose who I'm investing with, that guy
Yeah.
may not be sort of on the top of the list.
Well, I would say that, they don't have anybody that they're responsible for, so they might not understand what being responsible for other people is, where they have that out easier, whereas, well, I'll be fine. Whereas if you understand about being a dad,
Yeah,
being a part of a larger group or larger culture and having responsibilities to each other, it makes it easier to be part of a team.
yeah,
Because you realize that, hey, if I go down, we're all going down.
yeah,
It's you realize that what you're just one part of a larger
right.
picture, and it's important what you do and how you act and treat people, and that goes along with the faith and the culture and everything, because it's important how people treat you. And you raise a good point, because communication for one, and the communication kind of goes hand in hand with the transparency and how they
Yes,
treat people. Like if they don't have time for you in the beginning, or once you wire the money and they kind of disappear on you, that's
yeah,
probably how they're going to be in good times or in bad.
yes,
So be careful before you do anything like that. If they're not taking your calls, or they're, kind of not responding as quickly as you'd like, maybe you probably take a step back, and maybe that's just a transactional relationship you don't necessarily need, because over time I've built probably over 120 questions that I look at, and some of those things that you went through, like, kind of answer a lot of those questions for you. Like if they're a family guy, they're a dad with kids, they're religious, whatever faith they are, or Christian or what have you, that kind of answers a lot of those questions just by what you're saying. That raises a good point, because they understand what community is like. And usually if somebody understands what being part of a community is, you understand what, being part of that team is, understand that even though maybe, it's a $10 million raise and you put in 50,000, and that's 1/20th of the whole pot, they realize that that person is still important, because without them, without that last piece,
hmm,
the deal didn't work or wouldn't have made it. So everyone's important.
hmm,
So, there's where the transparency and the communication will go hand in hand with that, because it comes from that culture of everyone gets to be treated the same regardless of how
yes,
much, who they put in. So you're absolutely right. That actually answers a lot of my questions for me. And it'd be interesting to find out, because maybe I'll go through the questions and see and see how many of them actually get through. That'd be an interesting discussion. But tell me a
yeah.
little bit more about the deals that you're doing in Kansas City.
Yeah. So I met a guy named Caleb Edwards about probably 2.5 years ago. And at that time, they were going through, they had, and this sort of blew my mind a little. I couldn't figure it out, but they had purchased a multifamily space. I think it was like 250 units, but like 200 of them were already done. So there's only like 50 left. And I thought to myself, like, how can there be enough meat on the bone to like get into it like a bigger deal like this? It seems like the developers and the guys who
Yeah.
started it, and they're gonna walk away with the lion's share. Like there's gonna be
Yeah.
nothing left. But it was amazing to see the returns that they got just from scooping up that, sort of
Hmm.
tail end project. So that turned my eyes into, okay, and that was actually probably one of my exposure to multifamily development. And I ended up flying out to Kansas City and toured probably about 7 or 8 of their value add plays in regards to multifamily. So value add, think of it like flipping, like you flip a house, you can flip a apartment,
Hmm.
and it's amazing. Once again, the
Basically
protection
just
you
a big
get.
flip. Yeah, it's basically
Yeah,
just
it's
a
just a
flip.
big flip, and I mean, there's obviously logistics in saying, hey, we're going to update these 115 spaces, units. So we're
Yeah.
going to do, 5 at a time or 15 at a time or whatever it is. And going back to that transparency you mentioned, it's refreshing to me to see, hey, this is where the team messed up. Like this is where they
Hmm.
did it poorly. Like where they not necessarily lost money, but they didn't make as much as they could have.
Hmm.
And they're not going to do that again. So that's
Hmm.
something else that maybe I would say I look for is, if everything is right, something's wrong.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if
There's
you've never done
something's
something,
missing. If
yeah,
everything's right, something's missing.
yeah. No one
Because
just comes into this life knowing exactly how
no,
to do stuff.
and you do get the unicorn every once in a while where somebody hits a home run, especially if somebody bought something like 2012 with, and then, 2019 they sold it and it was just churning along like pretty easily. But, I would say, myself getting into the development world last year as well, realizing that it's a whole different ball game in a lot of different ways because once they build it, like you're saying, I always thought they make the lion's share of it, but a lot of times they just build it to sell it. So, and if they get X amount, it doesn't really matter. Well, not to say that it doesn't matter, but it's not as much of a variable if the rents are under market. And then there's where a lot of teams can come in, like potentially your team comes in and they buy it with the rents are $200-300 under market or something like
Hmm.
that, and
Hmm.
it's cash flowing for the builder, but for the next guy, hey, he can get it at a good price and still got a couple $100 in rent bumps, and without really having to do anything over the next 5 years, they can just slowly bump up the rents, and it gets a great return for the guys, and it was very eye opening. It was for me as well. In
Yeah.
that regard.
So I mean, I've stayed away from doing like larger commercial deals. Like I know you mentioned like medical offices. Those are just
Yeah.
things I don't know enough about to feel confident in it. But what I would say is when you talk to a layman, a doctor, anesthesiologist, sales guy, about like what you just said, raising the rents slowly over time, sort of the recession proofness of, hey, as interest
Hmm.
rates go up, people are going to need to move into these places because it's
Hmm.
no down payment, or it's a little down payment, and you can look at stats on multifamily things. So
Yeah.
it's a very digestible conversation.
Yeah.
And you want to educate people. I need to be educated in different ways that you
Yeah.
can make money, but it's you have, like you said, this checklist. You had 120 questions, but for me
Yeah.
it's like, you look at the market, Kansas City. Okay, that's a small buzzword right now. Even if you don't know a lot about real estate, you've heard
Yeah.
Kansas City enough that there's something going on there.
Overland Park,
Yeah. So
Kansas City, Kansas City.
someone knows somebody who's invested in
Yeah.
Kansas City. If they're not investing in it right now, I mean, I feel like it's a lot of my investors. Oh, I got a buddy who's doing stuff in Kansas City. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
there's obviously some things happening there. So the market's great, and then what's the team like we talked about, and then what's the venue that they're doing? Is it multifamily? Is it a commercial thing? And then as you dig deeper, you just get more confidence, and
Yeah.
you want to work, you want to invest with people that you know, like, and trust too. I think that's something else
Yeah.
that we did. We talked about the fatherhood stuff. I actually brought this book today. This is called
Oh, great.
The Intentional
Good.
Father. The podcast I have is called The Invested Fathers, and sort of play on word there on we're invested into what are we invested
Mhm.
financially? We're also invested emotionally, invested with our energy and our time and our commitment into our family. So there's more than just what the quick thought of investments is financially invested, but
Mhm.
so talk a lot about how can we do what matters, what's most important, like we've already talked
Yeah.
about in the beginning. But for anyone out there, what I was saying was my target audience are dads and dads
Mhm.
that really are investing for the sake of spending more time with their with their kids or family, and also just building wealth. It's biblical to
Mhm.
leave a legacy for your grandkids. The Bible talks about
Yeah.
that. And having these assets that are producing for you is wise. And we need to steward our time and our resources well. So I enjoy working with similar minded psychographic people in that stage of their life. I'm kind of a newer dad or dad with younger kids, ages,
Mhm.
0 to 9. But like yourself, you got kids in college, and I just feel like there's such an instant connection when you
Yeah.
could find a dad who's not just a dad by title, but like
Mhm.
a dad for like almost like a calling. Like, this is
Yeah.
something that's the most important job I have, and this
Yeah.
is
It
why
really
I'm
is.
working.
Yeah. It really is, because, you know, you're being intentional, like the book was saying there is, it comes after you have your why. Then once you're intentional, everything kind of falls in place. And being a dad is a very, there's anybody can be a father, but being a dad, you have to be very intentional. That just means that you're going to be around there for your kids, not only financially but emotionally and physically present with them, and that's very important. And I think that a lot of times when you're looking and speaking to investors and stuff like that, it's something that you have to have is you have to have an alignment of interest. And it's the same thing as a dad. You find other people that have an alignment of interest where they're present with their kids and they're around, they maybe have the same faith and stuff like that. It makes it easier. It's an easier conversation because you have that commonality and you're all trying to do the same things, and it's easier for you to be a team player, because I may be the captain, but my wife's the admiral. So I wait for my orders, and
Yes, man.
we move the fleet, and wherever it needs to be. You know, that's what
Yes,
that's what we do.
absolutely. I, I I was joking with you last time we talked. The podcast I have, The Invested Fathers. I said
Yeah.
I think I might need to change the title or have some type of like subtitle saying like, but the wives are the ones that are
Yeah.
the
With
heroes.
permission, with invested fathers with permission.
Yeah, with permission. And for any mom out there or
Yeah.
new dad, not new dad, but like anyone with a newborn, huge respect and admiration for moms
Hmm.
getting up in the middle of the night, just doing what we can't do as
Yeah.
men.
Yeah. Well, one being able to carry the baby to term and going through all those
Yes.
physical life changes and then all the emotional changes that come with it. That's it's hard enough for us to watch it or be a part of it, but them having to go through it, that's hats off to them because that's I don't know. I don't think we'd have any kids if us guys had to have any.
We'd have one.
We'd have one.
And it'd be
Yeah.
like, nope,
Nope.
not
Nope.
doing
We're
that
done
again.
here. Yeah. And then we'd all die off, and yeah, that's what would happen.
Hey, Scott, you mentioned something that was a little bit of an eye opener for me by reading this book. There's the first chapter, he talks about the five different kinds of dads, and I'm going to forget like the first couple, but basically they all start with sort of the ignorant. Um, and as it gets to the fourth and fifth levels, and each level has a different thing, the fourth level was the involved father. Shows up
Okay.
at the games. He's very present, makes breakfast with the kids. He's around. But
Okay.
there is another step, and that is the intentional father.
Ah.
And really, the main difference is you know your kids, and you have a plan for them. It's not just hey, you're kind of around for
Mm-hmm.
which I mean that's good to be. I mean, there's people that aren't around. Like there's three other
Hmm.
levels of people who are
Yeah, there's
sort of
there's
below that.
unfortunately this day and age there's a lot of dads that are not around. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's tons of statistics about how just not even being around. I mean, let alone if the kid's just with his mom all the time, or there's a broken family or whatever. But I was challenged, even thinking, hey, I'm around a lot. This is great. Like I'm there.
Yeah.
But reading this book, it did push me to say, what are some things that are I actually have a plan for my kids
Hmm.
in leading them. So if that sparks any interest with the listeners,
Yeah.
definitely check out the book. It's on Hoopla, or there's library. It's like a free website, free book for if you have a library
Okay.
card. But I also listen to it on Audible. The author is John Tyson, so I'll
Yeah.
just do another quick plug there for that book.
No, that's great. That's really helpful because I'm definitely going to read it because I know I'm around and I've been around other than the times I've gone at sea and stuff, but I've always made a choice or choices to be around much more than I really intended to be or not intended to be, because I really wanted to spend as much time as possible with them because a friend of mine said when we used to take them to the library and they would have the readings and he said to me and he said, well, you can always tell the kids where the parents spend a lot of time with them. I said, well, how do you do that? And he's like, well, the ones that sit right up front, pay attention and listen to the adults are the ones that the parents spend a lot of time with. The ones that are in the back that just get dropped off, they're running
Mm.
around, they're jumping mainly just because they want attention and they want somebody to, give them some guidance and stuff like that. But I like the level that you were saying that the fifth level is intention, is because I think that's something probably I need to work on. Like you have a plan for them and help them, give them guidance and stuff. And that's something I know I could be better at.
Oh
And
yeah.
I, and that's something I know that I definitely need to pass on, give to them and everything. But this is,
Maybe that's why I love the audience of dads so much, is because we're all failures. We're all hopeless. We've all screwed up in some way. And
yeah,
there's no, this is
no
a book, but
formula.
there's no exact, like, if you do
Yeah,
these exact things, you're
no
going to get this.
checklist. There's no
Yeah.
checklist.
So
There's
it's messy, and I just feel like that's real life, even like church, like we're messy sinners all coming together, trying
yeah,
to do what's right, trying to help each
yeah,
other, community, village mindset there. And I just
yeah.
feel like as dads, we can also, hopefully attract other failing dads to say, hey, this is how I failed, this is how you failed.
I
Let's
could
try to
see
not
your
go that
commercial
way again.
now. Are you a failure?
Then you're in the right
Do
place.
you need help?
Yeah.
Hey, call Kenny.
No, I mean I'm failing, but yes, it's at least getting I'm all about encouragement, support. So yeah. Anyway, it's great. I just love it. Love being a dad.
No, it really is. No, no, that's great because I know that just being intentional and being present, you can and I thought about that a lot of times because I would say just watching other people's kids and stuff, and just watching kids in general as they grow up. The ones that got a lot of attention from their parents, they were a little more, um, they were a little more intentional with who they spoke to and everything else. But
I heard something kind of powerful. Actually, yesterday, I met a guy who I would say has extreme wealth from his vocation.
okay.
Just he started a brokerage doing real estate, and that exploded, and he's set. He's good on money.
Mm,
So this guy has two kids, and they're under the age of 10. So he's kind of a, I guess you could say, somewhat younger dad in that way. But one of the things that he would say has driven, well, I guess two things. One is there's a huge fear in his life of not being equipped to lead his kids correctly as a
mm,
dad, and when they're teenagers, will he be able to help them during harder times, kind of stuff. So that's
mhm.
one of his things that keeps him up at night, sort of deal. And then the second thing that I thought that was interesting while we were talking the other day, just we were I met him from church, but he had met with Tony Robbins, and this was, I don't know, a few years ago. He said he had an hour and a half with him. So, you drop a name like Tony Robbins, there's something that
Yeah,
you've kind of done to, I guess, have his audience. But he
yeah.
said what Tony told him was Tony's main job was to
Mhm.
keep successful business people married, and like basically to be a good dad. Like
Mm,
it's not this sense of I mean, obviously the people that are probably at his events have money, or are willing to spend
yeah,
money in some way. So there's a level of like maybe
yeah. A certain
financial
level of
security.
commonality of financial success there already.
But I
Yeah,
just found that
that's interesting.
so eye-opening in a way that someone is, what is the thing I need from you, like Mr. Mentor, Mr. like
Yeah,
motivational speaker. And he says like it's keeping these, businessmen married and keeping their wives first,
happy in
and then
there.
being a good dad or parent. So I
Yeah.
found that very comforting to say like, hey, you don't have to be rich to like be working on these
No.
things.
Well, I figured something out a long time ago that if I just focus on being the best person I can be, the rest of the stuff, like if I focus on being the best Scott kid I possibly can be, I'm gonna be a good dad. I'm gonna be a good captain. I'm gonna be a good
Hmm.
partner in real estate. I'll be a
Hmm.
good husband. I'll be, and it's still a work in progress, but if I still focus on that, get back to why is this a difficulty? It's like, well, maybe I need to change this, or I put myself, chose to be in that situation, and, or I didn't make the right choice there. I should have done this, and put myself out. But no,
I think
this
that's
is,
huge. And
yeah,
for, I mean, even for someone like myself, I'm very much service minded. Like I want to help
yeah,
others. I want to make sure everyone is comfortable around me. I'm just wired that way. And you can slip into this, hey, I've made sure everyone else is okay.
then
My
you don't
cup is
work on you.
empty.
Then you
Yeah, I'm
forget you. You're left empty, and you can't really help anybody anymore, and you get burnt out. I've
mhm.
been that way is also because I always gave, but I didn't receive, and then also I didn't allow myself to replenish. Like if somebody asked, I didn't know when to say no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a powerful one. That one's
Yeah.
hard.
Because if
Um,
you don't say no, then you're saying yes to everything else, and then you will burn out. You will, and then at what cost? It's really you got to replenish yourself first before you can really keep helping. But this has been really eye-opening. We're definitely going to be doing this again because those dads need to catch up more often than not and give ourselves some therapeutic laughter. Where
yeah.
where do people, if they want to find out more about Kenny Johnson, find Kenny Johnson?
I'm getting back into my podcast. I took a break when our daughter was born about 2 months ago, but I really feel like my podcast, The Invested Fathers, has really been the truest sense of what I'm doing. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a website, investwitheastwest.com, But check out this book, The Intentional Father, and if it rings any bells for you, or if you're convicted or challenged or want to learn more, I think people will find me, and we can unite
Yeah, that'd be
together
great.
the
Look
dads.
look for Kenny Johnson, the Invested Fathers podcast. That's I know I get a lot about out of our conversations and being on your podcast and everything, and look forward to more conversations. Just because I like to see more dads be out there and be successful and everything. But thanks for all your help for everyone. This is the Yacht Captain Investor podcast. Always reminding you that investing in yourself is the best investment you can make. And if you like what we talk about here, please like, subscribe, comment, and share with people you think it might resonate with. And as always, be clear, be grateful, and listen. Thank you, guys. See you guys next time.